She combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people.
The document was only 2 pages long, but the moment King Charles placed his signature beneath its final paragraph, the future of the monarchy changed. Camilla would retain her position beside the sovereign, but she would no longer hold any ceremonial authority over future coronations. Not William's, not Catherine's, and not the crowning of the generation that followed. The order was final, yet the most explosive detail was not Charles's signature. It was the demand that had forced his hand. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The closed room at Buckingham Palace felt stripped of comfort. Charles sat at the table, while William remained standing beside an untouched chair. Camilla faced them in silence, with 2 advisors near the door. No relative had been invited. A sovereign directive, a formal written order issued by the monarch, rested beneath the king's hand. Once signed, no private promise could reverse it. Charles lowered his eyes and read the central clause aloud. The Queen was removed from all future coronation planning, advisory meetings, rehearsals, seating decisions, regalia choices, processions, and ceremonial duties. A coronation is the ceremony in which a monarch is crowned and confirmed. Authority would now belong only to the sovereign, the direct heir, the heir's spouse, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and a new ceremonial council. Camilla had expected protocol changes. Now her expression hardened. She watched her husband avoid her gaze, then turned toward William. The prince refused to sit. His jaw remained tense, as he insisted that future coronations must belong to the future monarch, not to unresolved struggles inherited from the previous reign. William placed a sealed folder on the table. Inside were memoranda, proposals, and a documented account of private planning meetings held before he approved preparation. Those papers showed that the Queen had sought a permanent decision-making role in his eventual coronation. Charles admitted he had known about discussions, but not their full reach. He had never understood that Camilla's authority might continue into William's reign. That discovery had turned a family disagreement into a threat against succession itself. The king signed. Charles pushed the order across the table. Camilla did not touch it. She removed her glasses, folded them slowly, and asked whether he had chosen his son over her. The monarch finally looked up. He said the choice had been made the moment someone tried to control a crown that did not yet belong to them. But William's folder contained something even more personal. And to understand it, the story had to move beyond the order and into the wounds carried by all 3. This was not merely a dispute about ceremonies, velvet robes, or who would stand closest to a throne. For Charles, the decision threatened the marriage he had defended for decades. For Camilla, it felt like a public warning disguised as private protocol. And for William, the conflict reached far beyond his own future crown. He believed the dignity of Catherine, the memory of Diana, and the independence of his children were all being quietly negotiated without his consent. Charles felt trapped between 2 promises. As a husband, he had spent years protecting the woman beside him from judgment, hostility, and the shadow of the past. As king, he had a deeper duty, preparing his heir to rule freely, without resentment passed down from one reign to the next. Those 2 responsibilities had finally collided, and neither could survive untouched. Camilla felt the loss just as sharply. Her place at the coronation had once marked the end of years of rejection. It had meant acceptance, legitimacy, and the right to stand within royal history rather than outside it. Now she feared she had been welcomed into the monarchy's present, only to be erased from its future. William carried a different wound. He had watched Catherine endure endless comparison, silent pressure, and private attempts to define her role before she could define it herself. He would not allow her eventual coronation to become another battlefield shaped by older rivalries. Charles studied his son and asked the question neither man could avoid. Was this truly about procedure, or had Diana's memory entered the room with him? William did not hesitate. He said the past mattered only because no one had learned from it. He was not fighting for memory alone. He was fighting to stop history from repeating itself through Catherine. At Kensington Palace, Catherine waited with her phone turned face down. She knew one call could mean reconciliation. It could also mean a permanent fracture between William and his father. The sealed folder made that danger real. Inside was a proposed coronation structure naming Camilla as the senior guardian of continuity, a role designed to give her influence over Catherine's regalia, procession position, guest priorities, and ceremonial access. Regalia meant the crowns, robes, and sacred objects used during a coronation, each carrying authority far beyond decoration. Camilla insisted the title protected tradition. William answered that protection without consent was control. Catherine's name appeared throughout the papers, yet she had never seen them. Charles moved away from the table. He pressed 2 fingers against the window and quietly asked how far the planning had gone. Camilla paused. That silence revealed more than any confession. Weeks earlier, a closed rehearsal at Windsor had turned private discomfort into open defiance, and that was where the real crisis had begun. Every royal crisis has a moment that appears insignificant, until history looks back and recognizes the fracture. In this case, it was a private ceremonial rehearsal, held behind the closed doors of St. George's Hall. There were no crowds, no cameras, and no announcement that a future coronation was being discussed. Yet when Catherine entered the room and discovered that her place had already been marked, altered, and approved without her knowledge, William understood that silence would no longer preserve peace. The rehearsal had been presented as a simple continuity exercise, designed to preserve coronation procedures and train younger palace officials for future responsibilities. A continuity exercise was a private practice used to ensure that important royal ceremonies could proceed smoothly when one reign eventually passed to the next. It sounded harmless. That was precisely why no one expected William or Catherine to appear. A senior courtier changed everything. He sent the prince a private written note warning that decisions concerning their future roles were being tested without their knowledge. William read the message twice, showed it to his wife, and went directly to Windsor with her beside him. Catherine entered St. George's Hall quietly. Then she saw the temporary floor marker bearing her position in the simulated post-crowning procession. It placed her several steps behind Camilla during the ceremony intended for William's eventual accession. She asked who had authorized it. Silence spread through the room. Camilla finally answered that continuity required an experienced queen to guide the next royal consort. A royal consort was the spouse of a reigning monarch, holding ceremonial importance without possessing the sovereign's constitutional power. William walked toward the marker, lifted it from the floor, and placed it on a nearby table. His voice remained controlled, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. Catherine, he said, would not rehearse submission at her own coronation. The briefing book made the insult more dangerous. One clause allowed Camilla's advisory authority to continue for 5 years after Charles's reign, meaning she could influence regalia, procession order, ceremonial access, and other decisions even after William became king. 3 courtiers had initialed the proposal. Beside their approval stood a handwritten endorsement attributed to Charles. Catherine remained calm until she reached another note. It recommended excluding jewelry connected to Diana to prevent what it called a historical distraction. She closed the book, pushed it toward William, and left without speaking. The prince did not confront his father that night. He copied the disputed pages and spent 3 nights building a case Charles could not dismiss as grief, anger, or wounded pride. What happened at Windsor had hurt Catherine deeply, but William's response would be precise, and it would force the king to choose between protecting his marriage and protecting the independence of the crown. William did not raise his voice when he first entered the king's private study. That restraint made the confrontation more dangerous. He placed the copied plans on Charles's desk, separated each disputed page, and waited until his father had read them. Then the prince delivered a demand no heir had made so directly in modern royal memory. Remove Camilla permanently from every future coronation role, or accept that William would refuse all advance participation while those powers remained intact. The late hour made the silence heavier. Charles had dismissed every aide, secretary, and advisor because he expected a painful family discussion, not a constitutional ultimatum. An accession was the moment a new sovereign inherited the throne after the previous reign ended. William made clear that his demand concerned that future transfer of power, not Camilla's current title, marriage, or place within the family. Charles felt the accusation cut deeper than procedure. He accused his son of humiliating the woman who had stood beside him through scandal, rejection, and the loneliest years of his life. William did not retreat. Protecting one marriage, he said, could not require surrendering another couple's future. Catherine had already been judged, compared, and positioned by people who never asked for her consent. He would not let the same machinery shape her coronation. The king asked whether Catherine had encouraged the ultimatum. Anger finally crossed William's face. His wife had asked for peace, he answered. She had urged restraint even after discovering the plans. He alone had decided that peace purchased with her dignity was not peace at all. Charles rose from behind the desk. He told his heir that kingship demanded compromise, patience, and the ability to absorb personal pain. William stepped closer. Compromise ended, he said, when another person began writing instructions for his crown. Then the prince produced the 5-year continuity clause. A continuity clause was a written rule designed to keep an arrangement in force after a major transition. This one would preserve Camilla's authority long after Charles's reign had ended. William asked whether his father had approved it. Charles admitted signing an early summary, but insisted he had never seen language placing the Queen above Catherine. The admission changed everything. His signature had been used to legitimize a wider structure, one he had neither examined nor fully understood. William removed his signet ring and set it beside the papers. The ring represented his authority as heir, and its meaning was unmistakable. He would not begin confidential coronation preparation until the clause was destroyed. Charles stared at it in silence. Before answering his son, the king summoned the officials who had drafted the plan. Someone had transformed a private wish into permanent power, and now Charles intended to discover who. The coronation proposal did not appear overnight, and Camilla had not written every line herself. Behind the disputed clauses stood a small network of courtiers who believed the monarchy's future required the steady hand of someone already crowned. Their argument sounded practical. Their methods were not. As Charles questioned the officials one by one, he discovered revised drafts, missing consultations, and a strategy designed to make Camilla's influence appear inevitable before William and Catherine could object. Charles ordered 3 senior figures to bring every version of the plan: the keeper of the privy purse, the official responsible for managing the monarch's private finances, his principal private secretary, the king's closest administrative advisor, and the director overseeing ceremonial preparation. None of them expected the review to become an interrogation. The officials insisted the proposal began as an emergency framework. If a sudden accession left William and Catherine unprepared, experienced hands would preserve order during the transition. The explanation sounded reasonable, until the earlier drafts were placed beside the final version. Each revision had expanded Camilla's authority. Each missing consultation had removed another chance for the future king and queen to object. Camilla entered the room and denied wanting to overshadow Catherine. Charles listened, then asked why she had accepted the title Senior Guardian of Continuity without first speaking to the woman whose coronation she intended to guide. One courtier rushed to defend her. He called the title symbolic, a phrase created only to reassure nervous officials. The queen turned toward him sharply. She demanded honesty. Denial would not protect her now. It would only make every hidden change appear deliberate. Charles dismissed the room before midnight, but he remained behind with the Windsor seating diagram. He traced Catherine's altered position with his thumb, exhausted by what it represented. Old family wounds had not merely survived. They had been converted into procedure. The earliest draft contained no power for Camilla beyond his reign. The 5-year clause appeared only after a handwritten account of a private meeting recorded her fear that William might erase her ceremonial legacy. A confidential memorandum went further. It argued that approval must be secured before his accession, because reversing it later would create a public scandal. Charles summoned his wife back. He placed the memorandum before her and asked whether those words reflected her wishes. Camilla read the paragraph twice. Then she admitted the truth. She had wanted protection from being discarded, but she had never intended to control William's crown. That confession destroyed the final excuse for delay. With the machinery exposed, and her fear finally spoken aloud, Charles could no longer protect everyone. His verdict would preserve the succession, but someone he loved would absorb its full pain. Camilla had survived public rejection, private hostility, and decades of comparison. But this defeat was different. The order did not remove her from the present. It erased her authority from the future. Within hours, her name disappeared from confidential planning lists, scheduled briefings were canceled, and ceremonial files were reassigned. No public statement had yet been released, but inside the palace the reality was unmistakable. The Queen would never again help shape a British coronation. Palace officials received sealed instructions, transferring every future coronation file away from Camilla's household and into a joint office reporting to Charles and William. A royal household was the team of advisors and staff serving a senior member of the family. The change was immediate, leaving no room for delay, appeal, or quiet resistance. Her ceremonial advisor surrendered briefing folders, rehearsal schedules, regalia notes, guest recommendations, and correspondence concerning Catherine. Regalia meant the crowns, robes, and sacred objects used during a coronation. Each file removed another piece of the authority Camilla had believed would protect her place in history. The speed of the transfer wounded her most. She became convinced that William had prepared more than an ultimatum. To her, it felt like a complete removal operation, organized before she had been given the chance to explain what fear had driven her to accept the disputed role. Charles tried to reassure his wife. The directive, he said, protected the monarchy. It did not condemn their marriage. Camilla answered quietly that history would never separate those things so gently. People would remember that the king signed the order. They would also remember whose influence it ended. Later, she received a private telephone call confirming that her next continuity briefing had been canceled. She placed the receiver down without protest, opened the cabinet where her coronation folders had once been stored, and found only an empty space. The Queen began to cry. Another detail made the decision feel permanent. Charles had included language preventing future governments, courtiers, or royal households from restoring her authority without written approval from the reigning sovereign. There would be no hidden route back. Yet William had not demanded her exclusion from his coronation. He had preserved a place for her as the king's widow or as a senior member of the family. She could attend, but she would hold no command, veto, or privileged advisory position. When Charles entered, Camilla asked whether she would be expected to watch Catherine receive the role she had tried to protect for herself. The king did not soften the truth. Catherine would receive that role because it would be hers. The official struggle had ended, but the personal wound remained open. The monarchy could not move forward until Camilla and William faced one another without titles, advisors, or Charles standing between them. Their meeting lasted less than half an hour, yet it changed the emotional meaning of the entire crisis. William and Camilla entered the room carrying decades of unspoken history: Diana's shadow, Charles's choices, Catherine's future, and the fear that one woman's acceptance required another woman's diminishment. There were no officials to interpret their words, and no monarch to force civility. For the first time, the heir and the queen confronted what each believed the other was trying to take. Camilla had requested the meeting herself. She chose a small library at Clarence House rather than a formal palace office, because she wanted a family conversation, not a procedural appeal. Clarence House was the royal residence long associated with Charles and Camilla, making the setting personal, rather than institutional. William agreed on one condition. The signed directive would not be reopened, softened, or renegotiated. The Queen accepted before he arrived. That agreement stripped the meeting of bargaining power and left only the truth. Camilla spoke first. She admitted that she had pursued continuity because she feared becoming irrelevant the moment Charles's reign ended. Years of struggle had finally brought her acceptance, and she could not bear the thought that history might close over her as soon as the crown passed forward. William listened, but he did not surrender his position. Relevance, he said, could not be secured by controlling Catherine's place. His wife's future was not protection for someone else's legacy. Then he raised the most painful detail. The phrase, historical distraction, used to describe jewelry linked to Diana, had made the entire proposal feel like an attempt to remove his mother from his future coronation. Camilla did not defend it. She said she had never written those words, but she should have rejected them the moment she saw them. Her voice broke as she admitted that fear had made her tolerate decisions she knew would wound him. The Queen then gave William a handwritten list, naming every official who had encouraged her to secure authority before his accession. An accession was the moment an heir became sovereign after the previous reign ended. With those names, the prince could dismantle the network that had shaped the plan. William revealed something she had not expected. Catherine had opposed excluding Camilla from the future ceremony. The princess believed accountability must never become public revenge. Camilla removed the ceremonial continuity pin from her jacket and placed it in William's hand. She asked him to return it to the royal archive because it no longer belonged to her office. The prince did not forgive every injury, but he promised she would be treated with dignity when his reign began. She promised never again to interfere with Catherine's authority. Their private battle had reached a fragile peace. Once the palace announced the restructuring, however, that peace would face the judgment of the nation. At 6 o'clock the next morning, the palace released a statement, written in language so formal that its meaning seemed almost hidden. Within minutes, broadcasters translated it into a sentence the public could understand. Camilla had been removed from every future coronation duty. The announcement ignited arguments over loyalty, humiliation, Diana, Catherine, and William's growing authority. Yet one image outside Buckingham Palace captured the national mood more powerfully than any studio debate, a crown divided by two generations. The statement described the change as a modernization of succession planning. Succession planning meant preparing for the transfer of royal responsibility from one reign to the next. From that moment forward, authority over a future coronation would rest with the reigning monarch, the direct heir, and the ceremonial council serving them, not with a former consort protecting influence from an earlier reign. Palace officials moved quickly to calm the growing storm. Camilla remained queen. She would continue her public duties beside Charles, attend national ceremonies, and retain her place within the family, but she would hold no formal role in preparing William's eventual coronation. The explanation satisfied no one completely. Supporters of Charles called it a painful sacrifice made to protect the crown. Critics accused the king of allowing his son to diminish his wife in order to settle wounds that began long before Catherine entered royal life. William received the news beside his wife at breakfast. Catherine did not celebrate. She told him that victory would mean nothing if Charles and Camilla were left emotionally destroyed. The prince understood her warning. He had defended their future, but he could not allow that defense to become cruelty. The fictional morning edition of the London Herald captured the conflict with a split portrait of Camilla and William beneath one brutal headline. The crown moves forward, but who was left behind? Near Buckingham Palace's Victoria Memorial, a crowd gathered before midday. One woman held a photograph of Diana. Another carried a sign reading, "Respect the Queen, protect the future." They spoke quietly while louder voices argued around them, revealing a country divided not between simple loyalty and betrayal, but between memory and change. A national broadcaster then delivered the next revelation. Catherine would join the new ceremonial council from its first meeting. Her future authority was no longer symbolic. It had already begun. Charles went further. He ordered every unsigned plan containing the 5-year Camilla clause destroyed, preventing the arrangement from returning under another name. Camilla watched the coverage until she could bear no more. She asked for the television to be turned off. Charles took her hand and said the decision would not be reversed, but neither would he allow the country to treat her as disposable. The nation had delivered its arguments. The monarchy's real verdict, however, would emerge only from what the four of them chose after the headlines faded. In the end, no throne changed hands, no marriage ended, and no royal title was removed. Yet the monarchy emerged fundamentally altered. Charles had drawn a boundary between love and succession. William had proved that he would defend Catherine's future even at the cost of family peace. Camilla had lost the authority she hoped would preserve her legacy. And Catherine, who never demanded revenge, became the quiet moral center of a decision that established exactly where one reign ended and another would begin. Charles called one final family meeting, not to reopen the signed directive, but to decide how they would live with its consequences. William and Catherine sat opposite the king and Camilla without advisors, secretaries, or courtiers present. A sovereign directive was a formal written order issued by the monarch, and this one had permanently redrawn the boundaries of future coronation authority. The king confirmed that the new structure would not change. Catherine would take part in every discussion connected to her future role, while the queen would receive information only when it concerned her current duties or attendance. Charles then apologized to his son for approving an early framework without examining how it might affect him and his wife. William accepted the apology. He did not pretend the deeper wounds had vanished, but he acknowledged that his father had finally acted before those wounds could control another reign. Camilla turned toward Catherine and admitted that she should have spoken to her before allowing any ceremonial plan to carry her name. The princess answered with quiet firmness. The future, she said, could only be protected when women were no longer forced to compete for the same dignity. Charles placed the original order inside a red sovereign box, the secure case used to carry the monarch's most important papers. He locked it, removed the key, and gave it to William. The gesture said what no speech could. The next coronation belonged to the next reign. Every official involved in extending Camilla's authority was removed from succession planning. The ceremonial council was rebuilt with written limits preventing any former consort from controlling a successor's crowning. The queen returned to her public duties, but she permanently withdrew from private planning involving William and Catherine. She accepted that her future place would be as family, not as an unelected guardian of their crown. As the meeting ended, Catherine paused beside Camilla and touched her arm. It was not complete forgiveness. It was something stronger, a refusal to let accountability become cruelty. Charles had not erased the past. He had stopped it from governing the future. William secured the independence of his reign, Catherine gained recognition without demanding humiliation, and Camilla accepted dignity without control. The crown endured because all four finally chose boundaries over bitterness. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.